What's up, Rangers? Welcome to the Geek Chest. My name's Steve, or if you're watching the unedited version of this video up on Patreon, where I usually post our how-to stuff over there beforehand, and it's unedited. So if you guys are interested, follow the link in the description below. Because currently, you guys might be seeing that one here in the near future. That one I'm not doing a video of, because I don't know how I'm doing that one yet. But anyways, what we have here is, if you guys have never seen one, a fully disassembled SH MonsterArts Godzilla figure. Some of these I couldn't get the ball joints out of, primarily the knee joints. These really big ones in here, because the way they sink into the body, I was just terrified to get them up. So I'm just going to cover up in masking tape. But what I'm going to be doing in this video anyways is show you guys essentially how to paint one of these. Sort of. I'm not really good at doing like the whole like doing everything in front of the camera thing. But I will pretty much go over the process of how I'm going to be painting this to make it more in the color scheme of the Dark Horse comics, which pretty much making this guy green. Because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with Green Godzilla, and I really wanted one. And having a extra MonsterArts figure, because I recently just got the first issue with the beam effect. But I like my second issue Godzilla better, so we're going to repaint this very first run, which I have all the spare ball joints just hanging out in there. So what I'm going to do off camera, this will probably be the only one I fully do off camera, but I'm going to primer it. And then once we get back, I'll show you guys exactly how I'm going to be properly painting this thing. The only thing I'm still concerned about is painting Godzilla's eyes here. That one still kind of terrifies me, but we'll get to that road in a little bit. It's the only thing I'm really that concerned about in terms of getting everything set up. But anyways, I will be back shortly after I go and spray paint this dude. Alright, so you guys have never seen this before, but I am currently in my garage and working on that because I overpainted, and my game plan is to make it look like it's bleeding, and I got to repaint parts of this again. But get to that a little later. But anyways, over here you can see my giant run of Godzilla parts primer. I just found it easier just to hang them up and spray them that way. I gotta move these a little bit. These ones actually primered twice. As I did a light shade, I didn't really like how the light was looking, so I did a dark run. There's a couple that aren't quite even, but since it's primer, it should be fine. And then over here, stacks of Godzillas sprayed, ready to go. So what I'm going to be doing now is spraying them with some Hunter Green Krylon paint. I'm just going to spray the entire bodies with them. And then go over the finer detailings a little bit with the dorsal spines. I'll have to airbrush those. And painting the eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'll just do this off camera. But I'm just going to, same thing I was doing primer, just going to spray them green, make sure they're covered really nicely. And then we'll come back to the finer details that I can do. Well, the airbrush I got to do out here. And then do the other stuff in the house. So back in a bit. Alright, so you guys can kind of see here that I've already started painting some of these. With like this one in particular. You guys see the color I'm going for. He almost kind of looks like a Swamp Thing. In a sense. You also see that I'm going to show you guys how to paint on this one in particular. But I used a metallic, or not metallic undercoat, but just a glossy undercoat. Because I wanted it to resemble a older 90s toy, which a lot of the Trendmasters and stuff like that had more of a shine to them. So I at least wanted the base coat anyways to have more of a shine, while the green on top is more of a flat color. But anyways, I'm going to show you guys generally the technique I do, which what I got here is some green paint. What I do is just take a little bit on the brush, brush a lot of it off onto... I'm using just particle board here. You kind of use whatever, but you don't want a lot of paint on the brush. And then whichever way the scales are kind of flowing, which they kind of flow upwards. So I'm going to brush towards the side here. And then I'll start applying my paint to it. But what's nice about doing it this way is that you only cover the larger sectioning of the scaling. Actually, I got a little bit mucked up. Hold on a second. What's nice too about acrylic paint is if you screw up, you can just wipe it off. But anyways, alright, so I kind of want to go this way. But just very lightly over top the scales, because you don't want to get the paint into the crevices. Because you want the dark green to kind of show through. Front of the chest, I don't think is going to really do what I want it to. But we'll see. Because it's more ridges more so than his more veiny scaling. You kind of just keep applying a little bit till you get more or less the coloring that you want. Which I need a little darker. Or brighter, I should say. Need to stand out a little more. Plus you can use this technique too for X pluses, stuff like that. In order to kind of, if you're planning on repainting one of those, it's more or less the same technique. Not sure what kind of brush you'd use. Like testing, this one seemed to do the job that I want. Because initially I was thinking about using one of those little sponge brushes, but that was applying too much paint into the spots because it soaks up a lot of paint. And again, just kind of brighten it up here and there till I get the shading that I want. But you don't really got to go too crazy into the paint into this section because again, you're not going to really see it. So a lot of those spots I'm not really too worried. Same if like it's not the cleanest look, you're never going to see it. Now for the dorsal spines, I plan on actually airbrushing this is what I'm hoping I'm going to do. Otherwise, if you don't have an airbrush, you would do the exact same thing, which depending on how I get my airbrush working, this might be too small for what I need to do. So I'm not 100% certain if I'm going to airbrush it yet, but we'll figure that out when we get there. Alright, so there you go. Another thing I want to bring up too is when painting it, you want to use a dry brush, or at least if you wet it, make sure to dry it up as good as possible, because if it's wet, a lot of that excess paint and water is going to get into the creases and you're just going to have to clean it up and restart again anyways. But looking pretty good overall here. I'm going to move on to the rest of the pieces and then we'll come back for the more finer details, next being the Godzilla head. Alright, so out in my garage, because this is where I'm going to have to do my airbrushing, but I kind of bypassed the thing without you guys because after painting this entire thing green, as you can see with the legs, dried up very nicely. Problem is trying to show the more minute details, trying to do this like painting the eyes with the camera in front of me, it wasn't happening. So I'm just going to show you guys. For instance, nails on the claws turned out really nice. What I'm going to do is at the end of the video I'll show you guys the entire thing and I'll go over it one more time, but you can see pretty much essentially what I do with the nails anyways. Move the lighting a little bit, but turn out too shabby. This is the stuff I couldn't really do in front of the camera, but here's the lower jaw, and then here's the head with the painted eyeballs, and actually added a little white shine to the eye as well. You kind of thought I gave it a little bit extra character, but turned out pretty sweet overall. I do think I like how the inner mouth turned out. Not the best paint job in the entire thing, but once you get the mouth in, it's gonna hide the back of the throat anyways, so you're not gonna really see it. That, and then some of the green still shows through a little bit with just the one coat. And I really actually like that because it gave a little bit more depth to the inside of the mouth anyways. But pretty much the head and that stuff's done. What I'm going to be doing out here... Oh, actually... But what I did for these, and just a little trick, is for the teeth I used a paintbrush with a flat top, but it's a really hard brush. So pretty much painting it doesn't adjust the brush at all. Like, as you know how sometimes we have a more rounded brush, it kind of, the bristles grow everywhere. But if you get a flat straight brush with very hard bristles, when you're doing the teeth, it doesn't really spread everywhere. So when you paint it, you just go a little bit, you pretty much start where you want to and then go down, just flick down. And that's the trick of doing this. And even on the inside, just a little bit of paint And I mean a little bit of paint. Like, dip it in your paint, wipe the majority of it off, and then go and start flicking. And then you do that for all the teeth, same with the lower, so that helps out a lot with that. Same with the toenails too, that helps a lot too, because this gives you your flat line and then you just work away from it. And then for the eyes, what you'll need is essentially the smallest little brush that you can get a hold of. But for this, what I actually did is I snipped a little bit off the end to make sure I had a really nice point. And then you dip this in your paint, again, wipe the majority of it off, and just start essentially just painting your eyes and just getting in there and just getting all your little details. But you got to pretty much have steady hands to paint these eyes, especially really, really tiny eyes. So what could help is putting this on a clamp, some way to keep it stationary, or what I do is I'll rest my arm on something and then I'll start painting it. And that helps me a lot anyways. But you'll need a tiny little brush for that. Most of the rest of it you can kind of use whatever. This actually works pretty well for doing the layering for the paint as well. Now I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I am not very proficient in knowledge with an airbrush. So I actually have to mess around with this a little bit just to make sure I got the right setting, and then I'll show you guys, I'll go over one of the dorsal spines once I get everything figured out. Alright, so here's my attempt after doing the airbrush. I think it turned out pretty good overall. I ended up just coating the entire thing in it, going very, very lightly. And it seemed to work very well and kind of hide the middle a little bit. Still stands out. So we'll see how that works once it dries up. Alright, so grabbing the other big spined figure. All I'm doing, going over it, and just very lightly spritzing it. Keep going until you fill in all your spots. Alright, so now I'm just going to keep going, finish the rest of the spines, and then once this dries, I can lacquer, and then pretty much on the final assembly. Here's our final product for our Dark Horse Comic color scheme Godzilla. Now, I decided to go with just the green coloring because for the comic, and the one I was going for in particular, actually, you know what? I'll just go grab it real quick. This one in particular, with the arrows shooting out of the back of them, is more or less what I was kind of going for with this one. Then also kind of gives it a Marvel appearance too. Now, I've liked the crap out of this thing, and after assembling a couple of the paint kind of scuffs, so I might have to go over a few of the things. But for the most part, pretty happy with the way this guy turned out, and I'll go over his closer details real quick. Which you can see for the head, which is probably the thing turned out the best, I personally think. The eyes turned out really nice and even gave them a little bit of a shine. Inside of the mouth looks pretty nice too, though when I put it on, I scuffed right at the top of the tongue. So you don't really notice it just looking at it, but it's there. So it's another one of those random things I gotta fix. But pretty much for the rest of it though, I think the pink turned out pretty nice for the inside of the mouth. Teeth look nice. And again, super happy that the eyes came out straight. Like, that was the thing I was worried about the most when doing this, because I haven't done eyes that much. And especially in that small of a scale. But for the rest of this, I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera. In hand, the spines are definitely a brighter green than the body. But they kind of blend in. And you can kind of see here on the arm where it's not quite as dark as I would like it to be. So I might re-go over that one more time and then lacquer this guy again. It's the same with here, trying to attach the legs back on, scuffed a little bit of the paint there. So there's a couple of places here and there, but for the most part, retains majority of the articulation. But for the claws, turned out pretty nicely as well. Especially the toe claws, I think turned out great. Ah, it's scuffed under the tail. God, it's like so many problems once I was trying to reassemble this. It just kept scuffing random bits of paint. But that'll be a quick fix too. But rest of this, pretty simple. Now what's kind of cool, once it focuses again, is getting a black light on this guy. And it's kind of the whole reason I decided to keep him just straight green, because adding any extra coloring would have kind of threw off this little gimmick. But for the spines here, when you get a black light on them, they illuminate blue. Or at least like a bluish green. So when you have that on it, it kind of gives him the illusion that he's shooting his breath effect. Which, personally, I thought was a neat little idea for this. Like, especially right there, you can see it glowing really well. So if you guys are interested in doing this, again, what I used here was fluorescent paint. And it's also something if you guys just wanted to add a little something extra to your MonsterArts and just wanted to spray over top of it lightly, this will do the trick for you. Yeah, shutting off the light now you can see it pretty well. It's, especially even over time, it brightens up more and more. So now that I got the everything going off, now you can see it really well. So anyways, that pretty much concludes this. So if you guys want to use this video as a tutorial on how to paint him, essentially, I feel like he came out about NECA good. Like he has more of a NECA paint job feel to him now than a MonsterArts. So it's not quite MonsterArtsy, but I feel like when I compare it to NECA, it's still a really good job. So just gotta touch up a few things here and there where I had some paint scuffs. But outside of that, just paint, lacquer, your best friends ever. But what do you guys think? Are you guys into this Godzilla comic color scheme? Or what kind of custom Godzilla would you guys like to see or do? Let me know in the comment section below. And help us defeat those kaijus by hitting that like button, subscribe, become a ranger today. See you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.